Hello, everyone. It's me, Andrew. I'm here in my home in lovely Ligonier, Pennsylvania. Hopefully, you all are having a great week so far. So busy as always. I don't think I've ever said that it's not been busy here. But yeah, super busy. Hopefully, you all are having a good week. It's a little bit of a kind of chilly, overcast day. I'm not complaining because it was super humid last night and I couldn't sleep hardly. So um, I'm thankful for a little bit of a cooler temperature today. Hopefully, you all are having a good weather where you all are. If you're watching, say hello and say where you're tuning in from. We always like to hear where people are watching. Yeah. So last night we had our book club. We talked about The Witch's Night by Paula and Trevor Braxton, and we also talked about um, Jenna De Leon's Louisiana Long Shot. That was a lot of fun. We got to hang out with Norma and Marianne and Sally, and that was a lot of fun. Um, if you didn't get a chance to see it, we live streamed it to the Allegory Gallery Design Challenge group. Normally, we live stream it to the Inspired by Reading book club if we do that, but we were having some technical difficulties last night. So that's where you can see that if you missed it. And I think it's still available for replay. But we had a good time. Hopefully, you all had a good time as well if you were able to attend. Um, yeah. And then over the weekend, this past weekend, we did, Jen did a tutorial on Byzantine chainmail earrings. If you didn't get a chance to see that, head on over to our YouTube channel and check that out. Those are only shown on our YouTube channel. So if you are a Facebook watcher, um, you gotta have to go over to YouTube to check it out because that's the only place that you can see it. So Jen did that. It was a really cool tutorial. I've seen a couple people try it so far in the Allegory Gallery Design Challenge group, and they look great. I love that that's kind of a foundation kind of design where you can build on it and you can make it if you're like, I don't like earrings, my ears aren't pierced. You can still make it into a bracelet or a necklace. It's something that you can definitely build on, which is really lovely. And I also love that Jen's tutorials, they build on each other too. So if you missed an earlier one, head over to the YouTube channel and check out her wire basics. And she shows how to make jump rings if you need jump rings and you don't have the right size or you don't have the right finish. Because sometimes that happens to me where I'm trying to match a specific component. And because that component has like a patina or, it's colorful or something, you don't always have the jump rings that you need to match. So that's a great kind of tip trick to get the things you need to make your projects and have it look the way you want. So definitely check those out if you haven't already. And be sure to subscribe, and turn on notifications on YouTube if you haven't already, because that's a really wonderful way to stay connected with us, and we love to stay connected with you. All right, I see a couple of people have tuned in. June's watching. Hey, June. Michelle's watching. Hey, Michelle. Norma's watching. Hey, Norma. Yeah, so we did book club last night, and that was fun. And then we did the yesterday during our live, which we also had some technical difficulties. I don't know what it is with that. Yesterday was just a technical difficulty day. Do you all ever have those? Teresa's watching. Hey, Teresa. So yeah, so yesterday we did a live sale event and we showed, I think 24, 25 different lots of dagger beads, and all the dagger beads are from the Czech Republic, and we went through them all. So you're not going to get, hopefully, knock on wood, you're not going to get any chips or any issues like that, because we went through all of the beads. So they're a great deal for some of them. And yeah, so check that out if you missed it, maybe after this video is done, and you can see some of the beads that are available. I also wanted to say that William sent out invoices for the flash sale that we had over the weekend on my personal timeline. Thank you so much for all of your support with that. Whether you were able to purchase something or if you were just able to share it and help boost the signal, that's always appreciated. Thank you so much for that. I don't know what the final total was because I didn't talk to William after he finished that, but hopefully it made a dent. I think it did. Now, if you ever have issues with your order, please email us at info@allegorygallery.com. That's the best place. It may take a little bit for us to get back to you, but that's always the best place, because sometimes people will message me personally and I'm like, I don't do shipping. So that's a good place to email us so that there's a paper trail. And also, so the paper trail is not only just for me, because then it kind of dead ends with me. So just keep that in mind. And we will always try to get back to you as quickly as possible when we know the answers to the questions. So there you go. All right. Yeah. So today, I don't know, it's kind of a blur, mostly just catching up on email and some side projects that I'm working on. We're still down to kind of one car, so that kind of limits what I can do. I was planning on taking the past 2 weeks to spend all the day long at the studio kind of cleaning up and doing like a summer tidy. But because we're down to the one car, I mean, technically we have the one and I can probably drive it. I just don't want to get like stranded at the cottage and then have like, desperation times if something happens, aka have to use the bathroom and then there's like a flat tire. Anyway, so yeah, so I haven't been able to go to the cottage as much as I would like, but I'm still keeping busy with some projects here at the house. We've been trying to get all kinds of stuff. We've got plans and plans and plans. It's just now it's like the execution time of those plans. If you did not hear yesterday, we were very lucky and we won a CEA grant. So that will hopefully, it will help upgrade some of our filming equipment, which will be good. We'll be able to stream at better quality and hopefully have a little bit of a better setup. So that way our videos are always clearer and a little bit better for you all to see. This is one of the ways that we interact with you all, and we try our best to polish whatever we have so that it gives the best kind of experience, and then we're also getting some jeweler's benches for the new shop, and that will hopefully help kickstart that. So our goal was to open in the summer, but I don't think that that's going to happen. It's probably going to be more towards the fall that we're going to be opening. And that's just a little bit like we've been doing a little here and there. And really, it's just what we can afford to do when we're doing it. So it'll take some more time. It hasn't happened as quickly as we thought it would. But thankfully, we have a tenant in that building, and that helps offset expenses. So we can, it's not quite as soul crushing, with some projects, the money just hemorrhages out if you don't do it like right away. But with this, there's a little bit of a buffer room, and we can be a little bit kinder to ourselves. Because otherwise, then you just have to, hustle, and that's not always conducive to other things that you're trying to keep up. So, anyways, that's an update with that. But hopefully soon, hopefully things will start developing more readily there, and you'll see that there. All right, so for today's project, I thought I would introduce you to what's called the Chevron Stitch. I've also heard it called the triangle stitch. Um, I'll be honest, I don't use this a ton, and I had to like look at my notes to refresh on it. So, but I think that it is one of those basics that could be a wonderful foundation for other projects. So that's always good I think that's good. I think it's always good to have things that you can build on and kind of develop, so you don't just only focus on the basics, but you can then kind of advance them and grow them. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to mention before I forget is that Annie is one of our new teachers, and she is going to be teaching a felting class. So if you haven't seen it, head on over to the Allegory Gallery Facebook page and check that post out, which will give you a link to our newsletter. Our newsletter is one of the ways that we connect with all of you out there, and is one of the most direct ways. One thing I would recommend is if you do get emails from us and you're currently on our mailing list, but you haven't seen anything for a while, check your spam folder, but also make sure to add us to your address book, because I've noticed, like even in my own emails, things like I correspond with William every day on store stuff through email. And you'd think that because, like we live together, have a business together, and talk every day on the email, that he wouldn't get pushed to the spam folder, but he's been getting put into the spam folder. So I don't know what that's about. Maybe, I don't know. But there are things, it's so weird because I get things for like, oh, this Nigerian prince has discovered that he is a multi-billionaire and he's going to give you some money if you do this thing. And that gets put through into the inbox, but the regular correspondence that I have with William gets somehow shuffled to the spam folder. So the only kind of things that I can suggest then is go and be sure to add us to your address book, and hopefully that'll help. If you're not currently on the mailing list, the email list, I recommend it because we send out coupon codes, we do product updates, all kinds of stuff. So that's one of the ways that we use to keep in touch with people. Also, the other nice thing about that is it's not dependent on an exterior platform. So we own our mailing list. So that way we can directly communicate with you all instead of having to like maybe put it on Facebook and then you see the announcement 3 or 4 days later when stuff happens. And that normally doesn't like matter too much, but when it's like a timely thing, like if we have an event or if we have a sale that expires at a certain time, I've seen it where, and I know this because I see this as a user myself, is there'll be events that happen that look awesome and great, and I could have went, but the announcement came later. So there's this one restaurant that's a little bit out of town, so it's not like right there on the main drag for us, but it's like close enough, and their food is really good. but I always miss their little pop-up things because I get the notification like 3 or 4 days later. And I don't know if that happens to y'all or not, but I was all like, well, I would have went, but so the best thing you can do is sign up to that email list and you'll get notifications. We don't send out, we send out at most one a day, but generally speaking, we've tried to ease up off of that so that people don't get overwhelmed with them, especially if we don't have anything going on. But when we go and we have a lot of stuff going on, that's probably one of the best places to get information. All right. So, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be doing the Chevron stitch today. Excuse me. It's a basic stitch, and I'm going to show you on bigger beads, but I will say that this works up a little bit nicer when you use smaller sized beads. So like 11O is like the most common size for like delicas and stuff. And that when you work with those, it just looks a little bit more tidy. So just keep that in mind. It's going to look hecka wavy gravy, but it's the best thing to do if I'm trying to show you stuff, because otherwise y'all gonna need the bionic man $1 million man zoom in feature, which we don't have yet in our lives. Maybe you do, I don't know. All right, so I'm gonna flip this camera around and you'll see the ceiling for a second as I get situated and flip the camera. And then we're going to go into the project. How about that? We're not going to let grass grow under our feet today. Well, maybe. All right. Hopefully you all are doing well out there. Have you all been making anything? What have you been doing? All right. So this is the back camera. Here is that coaster from last night. And then I'm going to try to turn on, that's too bright. Let me turn this on. I'll put the felt down first and then we'll turn it on, because otherwise you're going to get blinded by the white spot, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to blind y'all. In theory, we have some new felt. I had to, when I got this felt, so we used to sell these bags in the store from this company that William discovered, and they're made out of an industrial felt. So they're water resistant and they're super, I love those bags, and I use those bags a lot. But I couldn't find that felt here in the States. The felt that I could find was all very thin and it didn't have that same quality. So I had to special order the felt from a German company, and the company actually they specialize in acoustic soundproofing, which is wild. You don't necessarily think about that, but that company that we got the bags for, they unfortunately closed, but I was lucky enough to track down the felt source, and that I need to order some more, because this one, the cats, they constantly fight over who's going to sit on it, and that's less than ideal for a working surface. So anyways, I've got this felt. I'm going to turn this light on. It's bright, but hopefully that's all right. We can actually see what we're working on. So I'm going to do this project. I'm going to show you the basic stitch using bigger beads. And I'm going to put these are all size 6. I'm actually just going to dump this. And that way I can see. Like I said, I haven't been able to go to the cottage very much as I would have liked to this week. So some of my beads, I have tons and tons of beads, but they're all at the cottage. And so I haven't been able to go and pack up my kit that I like to use. So I'm going to use this mix to demonstrate things. So for today's project, I'm going to use some Fireline. This is an 8-pound and smoke. And I'm going to cut off a wingspan. Bonnie says, I've been painting, but hoping to get back to jewelry later this week. Oh, good. Yeah, I've been painting a lot too, because I have all my painting stuff here. And then we are going to need a needle. This is a size 10 needle. And I know some people like to use tulip needles. Now, this is a project that if you have a bead that you can use as a stop bead, that's great, because especially when you're using the larger beads, it gets a little bit wavy gravy. So I know I've shown this about 11 billion times, but to do that, to add a stop bead, you just string on one bead. You go down to where you're going to leave yourself a tail, and this is about 4 to 5 inches, and that's so I can add a clasp later. And then since I've strung that through, I'm going to go back up through that bead, and then I'm just going to pull that, and it's going to create what's called a stop bead. Now, if you don't like to use these stop beads, I don't always like to use stop beads because then I have to pick them out later. You can also use a bead stopper, which is a little spring with 2 little grabby ends, and you kind of squeeze the grabby ends and it opens up the spring, and then you put that on. You can also use a piece of tape. If you use a piece of tape, just know that you can get some residue. That's not always ideal. All right. Sometimes it gets sticky, and then you're like, oh, why are my fingers all sticky? And then that's why. So what I'm doing right now is I'm kind of sorting out 2 colors. Now this is just the basic stitch, and we'll go into a project later where you can see how to use these with some dagger beads, because I don't know, I've been really into dagger beads lately. So I'm going to show you something that you can use those dagger beads. If you missed it yesterday, we did a live sale event. There were about 24 or so lots available last night. So short and sweet, not anything too long. If you didn't get a chance, you can always watch that video and send us an email. And some of those we have extras of, like some of them we have like 15 lots of it. And then some of them we just have one lot. So it just depends on which ones you want. Yeah, I don't know if any of them sold out or not. I'm sure they did. But William, he's the one who deals with invoicing, so he knows. So these are size 6 seed beads. I don't necessarily recommend doing this stitch with size 6 seed beads because you can it's more loose, but it is something that you can do. So just keep that in mind. All right. Yeah, hopefully you all had fun last night. I had a good time. We hung out. And then after we had book club, and that's always fun. It's one of those things where I hope we can build that back up again, because at the height of it, we had probably, I don't know, 20 people participating in the book club. and we had people from all over the country. And one of our big book clubs, we had people from all over come. And so we had people from Minnesota that came in. We had people from New York. We had people from North Carolina and Ohio. And it was just a lot of fun. So hopefully we can build that up again. We're not currently doing in-person book club right now. And the reason why is the last couple times that we've had book club in person, it's been me, William, and like one other person. And you know, it I don't mind it because I like to hang out with people sometimes, but at the same time, I also have other things that we can do. And not to say that that's not something good to do, but until we can build it up again and get more active participants, we're just going to put the in-person meetups on hold. And then if enough locals want to do it, then we'll get that back going. But I think that's one of those casualties of the pandemic where, you know, it was really robust, and we had people that would come every single time, and we read lots of books and lots of people ranking projects, and we were featured in a couple different magazines, and there are a couple people who are teachers, and they actually implemented some curriculum changes so that they could do their own versions of Inspired by Reading. And we did at one point kind of have a sister branch out in Oregon, and they would all meet up and make stuff too. So that was super cool. But, you know, like a lot of in-person meetups and stuff, that kind of went by the wayside. All right. I see Harry's watching. Hey, Harry. All right. So to start this, I've got two colors here, and that's going to be for demonstration. We're going to pick up 1, 2, 3, 4 of this A color, and then I'm going to pick up 1, 2, 3 of this B color. Oop. And then I'm going to pick up 1, 2, 3 of this A color. So A and B. And then I'm going to string this down to the end. So I've got this. There's 4 beads, then 3 beads, and then 3 beads. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend this up like so. And you see this one here? This is the first bead that we strung on. I'm going to go up through the bottom of this. And that's the 4th bead on that kind of segment. And I'm going to pull this taut. Now, you're going to have to use the Power of Imagination Station to visualize it. But this is, I don't know if you can see that or not. This is a triangle or the chevron. Can you see that? Once we add more, it will look right. All right. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna pick up 3B and 3A. And then I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to go down through this 4th bead here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to go down through this. And this is going to form 2 sides of that triangle. So you've got this. All right. So I'm going to pick up 3B. 1, 2, 3. Let me turn this off and see if this... Does that make it better or worse? Which one's better? There's a lot of shadow with that one, so I don't know which one works better. I'm going to let you all decide. Do you want the light on or do you want the light off? All right, so I'm going to pick up 3 of this B and 3 of this A. And then I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to go up through that 4th one, and it's going to create a little triangle. All right, and you're going to want to keep your attention kind of, you're going to want it to be a little bit tight, so you just kind of have to pull it. So if you have it too loose, it's going to be tricksy. All right. Marianne says off. Norma says off. Okay, I'll leave it off. All right, so I'm going to pick up 3 beads from B, 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to pick up 3 beads from column A. And then I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to go down through this one. So basically, wherever the 4th bead is, the 4th A bead, we're going to go through that. So I'm going to pick up 1, 2, 3 of column B, and 1, 2, 3 of column A. I'm going to count the A's, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm going to go up through that, and we're going to have a little bit of a triangle. Like I said, on the bigger beads like this, it's a little bit wavy gravy style. It doesn't necessarily always want to fit, but here you go. So you can kind of see what's happening here, right? You're seeing the this shape. This is the basic stitch. So you start with 4, 3, 3, and then you add 3 and 3 every time. So like so, 1, 2, and 3, and then I'm going to pick up column A, 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to, this thread's coming out this bottom here. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. And then this 4th one, I'm going to go down through the bead. And it's going to create the chevron. Cheryl says, oh, I'm late, but this looks like magic, Andrew. This looks a little bit like chewed up bubble gum, but thank you. But you can see that's kind of the base of that stitch. That's like a zigzag. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a real or a more real project now that we have that going on. All right. So what I'm going to do is see how this is, how we started that. And then you would just do this until you reach the desired length. And then you would add a clasp on or whatever. And there you go. This is great if you have, if you want to build this, you can double up the rows. So once you do this row, you can go back over and then add another row of that and make it a little bit more complex so that it's a wider band. But you just kind of adhere to the same things as you do. You're going to be going into the 4th bead and creating that kind of triangular shape. All right. So let me go and I'll put this off to the side so that we can have this as a reference. And then I'm going to cut off another bit of beading thread, and then we'll get into a real project. All right, so for the real project, I'm going to be using, let me see here. I have some size 8 set aside in little baggies. All right, so I've got this blue and this green, and those are going to be my A and B. So I guess this is going to be my A, and then this is going to be my B. All right. But to make things a little bit different, I'm going to incorporate some dagger beads into this project so that you can see this variation. So these are a little bit smaller. So it's you know, it's not as quick to work up. With the size 6 seed beads, you can get a lot of progress, but using the size 8, it will take a little bit longer, and you just kind of have to go with it. And if you do this with a smaller seed bead size, like an 11O or a 10O, it will it'll take a while as well. All right. So these are some of my leftovers that I had from yesterday when we were putting together the daggers. So I want to use some of these. And I think I'm going to go with these little ones. These are a little bit of the smaller size of the dagger beads, but I'm going to use those as well. Nancy says, I'm seeing Delicas being real nice with that suit. Yeah, they do. It does. If you do use Delicas, it does tighten up because Delicas, if you didn't know, are more cylindrical in shape than, say, the roll cows, which are a little bit rounder. But you use what you got, and some things like peyote stitch, if you are doing stuff that has a pattern in it, definitely use stuff with delicas or that kind of style of bead, so that when you so it all kind of clicks into place. All right, so I'm going to cut off another wingspan of thread here. And I'm using an 8-pound fire line. I like to use the thermally bonded thread for this part because it's a little bit sturdier. And using these beads, like if you use the smaller size beads, it's fine, because to use a different kind of threading or thread, because it will click together a little bit and form a little bit of its own structure, as opposed to this one. You have to have more of attention. You have to play more with the tension on the larger beads. I feel like the smaller beads, they kind of work together, and they kind of form their own kind of unit, as opposed with these larger beads, there's a little bit more wavy gravy movement. All right, so I'm going to add a stop bead for my own personal sense of well-being so that it doesn't come loose. I am going to leave myself enough thread for a tail. So about 5-6 inches. That's good enough for making a beaded loop. All right. So you string one on, and then you go back up through the bottom of the bead, and that's going to be your stop bead. You pull that nice and taut, and there you go. All right. So what we're going to do for this project to start this off, since we've already gone over, it's very almost mind-numbing when you've just seen it, but this is how we start. So I'm going to pick up 4 of these column A beads, and then I'm going to pick up 1 column B and 1 dagger and 1 column B. And then I'm going to pick up 1 of column A, or it's going to be 3 of column A. So what you're going to get is you're going to start with 4 column A, do 1 B, 1 dagger, 1 B, and then 3 A. So if you can see that, there's 4 of this column A, 1 B, 1 dagger, 1 B, and then 3 column A. All right. So I'm going to pull this down to the end till we get to the base. And then what I'm going to do is, wherever I've added the 4, I'm going to count up 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to take my needle and go up through the bottom of the 4th bead there, which is the first bead that I added. And then I'm going to pull this, and that's going to form the little triangle.
Hello.
Hi. You have a sweater on.
I know it's chilly.
How's work today?
Okay. Did you feed the kittens before
No, of course not.
I'll feed the kittens.
All right, so that looks like nothing because I probably should have picked more high contrast beads for this, but oh well. All right, so for the next row of this, I'm going to pick up 1 bee, 1 dagger, and another bee, and then I'm going to pick up 3 of the column A. All right. 1, 2, 3. All right. And then I'm going to pull this down to the end there. And then I'm going to count this row of A. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And in that 4th bead right there, I'm going to go down through that. Now this one is a little bit more, you have to do a little bit more playing around with the tension because those dagger beads are a little bit heavier, so they will pull that side a little bit more. All right, so just keep that in mind as you go forth, that you just have to, I like to hold it with my thumb and forefinger or thumb and middle finger or whatever is most convenient, and then keep that locks in that tension. But for demonstration purposes, you can't actually see the work. So I'm going to pick up 1 bee, 1 dagger, 1 bee, and then 3 of my A color. All right, and then I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4 of that column A right there. And then I'm going to go up through that last bead there, the 4th bead in that little segment. And then I'm going to pull it taut. All right. So I'm going to continue this and we can kind of like chat, I guess. So, what have y'all been up to? Have y'all been making things? Do you have any exciting plans for the summer? I know some people said that they were traveling. Some people are doing garden projects. All right, so I'm pulling this up. So counting 1, 2, 3, 4, going down through that 4th bead in the last segment. Are there any books or movies that you're excited to see or read? Susie's watching. Hey, Susie. And I'm going to pick up 1 bee, 1 delicate, or no, 1 dagger, 1 bee, and then 3A. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then go up through that 4th bead there. All right. So yeah, we've been busy getting things ready at the cottage. William's actually been doing most of the yard stuff this year. I mean, he does most of the yard stuff anyways, but like last year I did the weed whacking more. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So he did the flower beds. Are you going in the cottage?
No, Jen's still here.
Oh, is she? Can we go to the cottage after? He's like, maybe. What are we having for dinner? I'm having a side conversation with y'all. I'm like Gertie. I'm food motivated. All right, so this is how this is turning out. And if you use more contrasting colors, you can see this pattern a little bit more. So like with the sample, the original sample I showed, you can really see it. You can see that kind of chevron develop. But with this one, you know, you kind of you kind of have to look a little bit closer. Susie says, no big plans for the summer other than staying cool. Oh, good. You're in Florida, right? Didn't you say you were thinking of opening a beads shop? I don't, or maybe I'm making stuff up. I don't remember. So if you didn't see what I just did, I picked up 1B, 1 dagger, and then 3 of the A. Now I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm going to go up through that 4th one. Now, like most beadwork, it's going to look a little wavy gravy the first pass through, especially with these a little bit larger size beads. But when you finish your bracelet, you can take the extra thread and go back through and work in another stitch, some more thread through your piece, and that will tighten up your piece and give it a little bit more structure. I definitely recommend this, especially whenever you're using daggers, to retrace your steps and thicken up that thread bridge that you're working with. Excuse me. Otherwise, these are kind of precariously balanced. Susie says, yep, in Florida, bead shop never quite materialized. Oh, well. Sometimes it's actually for the better. I know you are painting a lot and you were having a lot of success with that. So sometimes, the universe conspires to tell you what you need, I will never dissuade anybody from following their dream, but I will say that if you are in need of a steady income, then maybe bead shop is not the best. You might, depending on where you are, you might have a different kind of experience because sometimes, like for us, I know that 1, 2, 3, 4, the weather is super. It determines a lot of our business in store. So if during the winters, it's kind of not always nice here, and so I shouldn't say it's not nice because some people like that snowy weather, but it's not always like ideal for driving. So we end up in the winter time as like our slowest time period. 1, 2, 3, 4, because of that. So I don't know. One of my friends, she is in Southern California, and when she had a bead shop, her slow time was the summer because it was so hot. So I don't know. But I think that things go in waves. So we'll see. Hopefully. All right. So I picked up 1B, 1 dagger, 1B, and then 3A. I'm going to count down 1, 2, 3, 4, and then go down through that. And yeah. So yeah, what is anybody taking any classes this summer? I'm excited. I'm taking a bunch of classes. I've been really into enamel this year. I kind of had a plan whenever the pandemic happened. When everything shut down and we didn't know if we were going to be able to have a bead store anymore or not. We're gonna have to. Nobody knew how things were gonna go. 1, 2, 3, 4. We had to do a lot of soul searching, and one of the things that I kind of realized is that I always wanted to go back to school, and that's something that it was really important to me. I finished my BFA, and I had wanted to get my MFA, but because of timing and like money and different things like that, it just didn't work out. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so that's something that I had always kind of regretted, not going back to school. And then so when the pandemic happened, I kind of like said, what is something that I want to do that I'm gonna, that I really wanted to do. And so it was to go back to school and kind of reinvest in my arts education. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've made like a really concentrated effort to do more educational things in so that I can, keep learning and growing as an artist. And, when you get a little bit I don't want to say when you get older, because I'm not super old or anything, but when you get to a certain point in your life, it becomes a little bit more challenging to do stuff. Um, 1, 2, 3, 4, like go back to school. So what I did instead was I investigated the different local craft schools and so the summer is usually when the craft schools are their busiest, and so that's what I kind of do is I take workshops at different places that are around here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I kind of had this idea that I would go back to school just for jewelry, but I don't know. I don't relish the idea of having student loans again, but you never know. So, one of the things that I am seeing is going to happen in my near future is I'm going to run out of these dagger beads. So, I'm going to 1, 2, 3, 4 have to do some creative sidestepping on this and we'll figure something out. So this is something because you're working with the daggers, you'll need a lot more depending on how big of a bracelet that you're wanting to make. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Norma says, I'm taking a basics of enameling class in July. Just need 1 day class. Just a 1 day class, but I'm looking forward to it. Oh, that's cool. Where are you taking that? If you come back, Norma, if you spend, I know you came to visit your friend in Pittsburgh, but if you come back, you can best out the enameling and refresh. Right. So this is what we worked on. And yeah. So I ran out of daggers. So what I'm gonna do is I can do a couple different things. I can either continue this with this chevron stitch across and keep going without the daggers and then count how many rows I do and then added some thread on this end and then continue it that way so that you get all the daggers kind of like in the front. So if you have it like that, then that's what that kind of looks like. Of course, this is super wavy gravy, so you just kind of have to picture it with the power of your imagination, how that's going to look. But I would highly recommend going back through your stitching either way because it is super loose right now, and you want that tension to be a little bit more. All right. So I think I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna pick up this pattern. I mean, I could add different dagger beads, and then I could like have it color blocked, but we'll see. Norma says an instructor and Bria, they have learn shops with various local artists a few times a year. That looks good. Danette says, I was looking at the Pittsburgh glass blowing today. Looks like so much fun and neat. Oh yeah, they have a lot of really wonderful artists. It's people come from all over the world to take classes at the Pittsburgh Glass Center. If you follow their timeline, I don't know if you know this, but the Pittsburgh Glass Center is expanding. And so they're doing all this construction work right now and they found a safe that they used. I don't know what it like a jackhammer or something to open it up and they found like this mysterious bottle of some kind of liquid, and then some papers. So no millions of dollars there, but I think that's pretty cool. There is one person, I can't remember where they found it, but they found this bottle, and it was like supposed to be like the bottle of immortality or something. And so these people, they drank this fluid from this mysterious bottle that they unearthed, not the people in Pittsburgh, but somewhere else. And then they found out that it was urine. So there you go, enjoying that couple thousand-year-old urine. So I don't think that was the fountain of immortality like they were thinking. Sally says, "Hi all, just listening in while I drive home." Oh, good. Danette said that would have been wild to find that bottle and papers in Pittsburgh. Yeah, I think it'd be cool. I always think that I'm gonna find some kind of treasure. I only find human remains, which I guess is somebody's treasure, but uh, there you go. All right, so I have a couple different options of how this is going to go. So I can add more. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a different color of daggers. I don't know if we had these daggers last night, but I have these smaller kind of gunmetal ones. And then I'm just going to count however many that I need. And then I'll use those on the sides. So that way I can add that. So this is, we're going to go off script, y'all, but that's fine. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes you run out of beads and you kind of have to go with the flow. So I'm going to pick up one B, one dagger, and one B, and then I'm going to pick up 3A. All right. Yeah, I always dreamed finding treasure. I don't know about y'all, but I remember when the Goonies came out, and I was obsessed. I was like, I'm going to find treasure, and it's going to be so cool. I'm going to buy whatever I want, and it's going to be amazing. All right, so I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then go down through this. And like I said, when you do this stitch, it will tighten up after you go through another pass. So I think that'll be good. Danette says those gunmetal ones are pretty. Thanks. I don't know if we had those last night, but here, let me move this pile in the middle there. Yeah, I've got one of my friends asked for a piece of ruby wire wrapped, and then I didn't go to the cottage because there was this super bad thunderstorm here. I was like, I'm not getting wet. That's something that I don't know if you know that about me, not that it matters. 1, 2, 3, 4, but I don't like getting wet when I'm not supposed to be wet. So I don't know if y'all have those things, but like I don't like to get rained on. One of my friends are like, "Oh, let's walk in the rain and enjoy nature." I was like, "With the umbrella?" Because I don't. And they're like, "No, just our skin, and then we can, commune with the spirits of rain." And I was like, no, nah, that's all right. I don't know. I guess it's because when I was a kid. 1, 2, 3, 4. I was always told that if you got wet and you were not, like if you got wet, then you would get sick. And so in the back of my mind, I have these alarm bells ringing in my mind that I have to dry off immediately. Otherwise, I'm going to get sick. And it's probably, I guess like my mom is from the Philippines, so she has a lot of superstitions and stuff that they kind of have their own rules. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you know what? A lot of those rules kind of make sense. Like if you are in a tropical place and you get like super wet, you can get like, really sick. So, like my mom, when we were kids, okay, so here there are many factors of why this is not uh, um, a good example of eating steak. But so when we were growing up, we were super poor. So we used to go to the flea market, and there was a guy who would sell. It's kind of like, do y'all have Schwan? One, two, three, four. So it's kind of like Schwan, but I don't know if it was Schwan or some other kind of frozen food company. And so they would sell the stuff that was almost expired. So, but it's frozen. So, in theory, it's not like bad. It's not like you're going to get, um, the trouble times. One, two, three, four. So, anyways, they used to buy stuff from him. And one of the things that they used to get were these prepackaged steaks. And they were already cooked, they were just frozen. And so my mom used to do this thing. I don't know if they were actually cooked or not. I take that back. But they were definitely not like the best cuts or anything by any stretch of the imagination. One, two, three, four. And so she would cook the heck out of it and douse it in stuff like with honey. And so people would tell me, they'd be like, oh, I love steak. I love steak. It's so good. But my experience with steak was only, the steak that we got from the flea market that had been cooked to death, times two, times 10. And so I never liked it until I was an adult and then realized you don't have to charbroil everything until it's basically cremains. So it's one, two, three, four. And so, yeah. But in the Philippines, they don't have, where my mom is or was growing up, they didn't have stuff like refrigeration. So if you don't have refrigeration, you have to think of how you're going to preserve one, two, three, four, how you're going to preserve food. And so a lot of the food, the cuisine has a lot of like vinegar and a lot of salt and a lot of things like that to help preserve the food. Or if it's like a meat, the food is cooked a lot, like a lot, a lot. So even though, there's things that kind of make sense sometimes when you think about it. Like, um, like my dad, he kind of makes fun of my mom for cooking meat that way. And two, three, four. But, if your whole childhood is if you eat undercooked meat, you're going to have the trouble times, then I can understand where that kind of comes from. All right. So I've added, Marianne said, old wives' tales. Correct. But sometimes there's truth in that. Like they found, what's pretty wild is they did some of these tests on the ingredients of incense that they were using for like Catholic kind of rites. And they realized that certain components of the incense they were using were like an antibacterial. And so when you don't have like antibiotics and stuff, then that's pretty cool as a way of like early people kind of fumigating out places where there could be like plague and stuff. So I don't know. I always think it's interesting when you look at things like that. Like a lot of fairy tales are based in kind of this cultural understanding of like early child mortality. Like, how do you explain that to somebody when, how do you explain why somebody lived and why somebody else died? So they would have things like the Yule cat. If somebody was lazy, you couldn't be lazy in those kind of societies where everybody had to do their part. And so they said, then if you didn't meet your quotas, basically, then you would get a visit from this giant cat that would eat you. Which, I think we have some of those stories nowadays where we tell ourselves different stories about the world. Um, and, we navigate them that way. All right. So, anyways, before I digress too much into anthropological conversations about folklores and mysticism in the 21st century, here we go. That's how that kind of looks. So, I'm going to keep adding rows of this gunmetal. I do prefer the blue. I don't know. But this is kind of giving me some peacock vibes. I don't know about y'all. So yeah, so I'm going to continue this. I'm not going to add too many to this side because I do want to go back on the other side and add as much as I added here. So one way, if you end up doing that, you can get a ruler. And so one of the tips that you can take for measuring your wrist is I always have a piece of like yarn or thread or whatever, and in this case a string of beads, and I will measure around how big that is. Now remember, when you're working with bracelets, you want the tension to be somewhat snug, especially if you're using toggles, because if they're too loose, then basically you made something for somebody else to find on the ground. And that's not ideal. So I'm measuring here, and then so I know that it's this big is my wrist, and then I can take and measure that, and that's about 7 inches. So what I'm going to do is then I'm going to measure my bracelet that I've been working on, and so then I have this. I'm going to measure. And right now we're about 4 inches or so, 4 inches. So I know that I need to do 3 more inches. But I also know that I have about 2.5 inches of this blue. So if I take 7, if I have 7 and then I minus 2.5, and then divide that by 2, then I know exactly how long I need to make these gunmetal segments. So what is 7 minus 2.5 divided by 2? And that's how long I know this segment has to be. And so there. In theory, I should be able to do that in my head, but I don't do mental math anymore. So there you go. All right. So I think that that's a good kind of introduction to this chevron stitch. I've also heard this called triangle stitch. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish this up off camera. And then, yeah, I hope that you all enjoyed that, hanging out for the past hour or so. And that this is something that you're going to maybe try. If you do try, we would love to see. Go ahead and share that into the Allegory Gallery Design Challenge group. We always love to see what people are going to make, kind of using these tutorials and live sessions and beads from us. It's always fun to see that. And also, I just wanted to remind people that there are only 4 days left, 4 days left of the kits being on the website. So that's allegorygallery.com. If you go to the kit section, you can see there's over 100 different kits on offer there, and they're all going away on the website in just 4 days. So if there's something that you want, you better grab it because they're either moving over to the physical store, which we keep the inventory separate. So just keep that in mind, or I'm going to cannibalize them and take them apart and use them for other projects, or I'm going to just absorb it into my own stash. And then, who knows when, maybe one day I'll bust out some yellow beads from one of those Ukrainian kits or something. I don't know. But anyway, so there's your fair warning. We kind of knew about this. We've done a couple different sales, but we're not currently doing any sales anymore on those kits because we kind of, we did 2 or 3 different sales to help move them. Now is if you want it, you got to get it before it's gone, kind of thing, because they will go away. We're not just saying this to say it. They're going away. So get them before they're gone, and you have 4 days left to do that. Of course, if you are having any issues or you need to have a little extra time or whatever, message us at our email. That's info@allegorygallery.com. And, we can work things out and, figure out how to get those to you. But, that's something to think about. All right. So I'm going to finish this up off camera. It's basically the same thing over and over. And then when you get to the end of your bracelet, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a beaded loop, probably using 6 beads. And then I'm just going to tie that in and then add a jump ring and a closure. So sometimes we're like, oh, what does it look like when you do that? And it really just depends on the look you want to get. But yeah. Oh, I forgot to show this. I showed the people on the creative make along that we had on last Friday. But this is what I used with the Sodalite kit so far. I did kind of a right angle weave on this. I used these Sodalite rounds, and I did right angle weave on this and made them that kind of base of that. And then I added fire polish check glass in between those top row and the bottom row there. And I probably will go back over and add another row of like seed beads in this kind of cool kind of a bluish gray color. I think that would look nice. It'll pick up some of those lighter tones in the Sodalite rounds, and then just add a clasp. So that's what I made during our creative make along. Those are lots of fun. We do those once a month on Zoom. And if you go to the website, allegorygallery.com, and you go to the events kind of section, there's a whole calendar list of the things that we get up to. And there's also links to the Zoom meeting. And as we found out yesterday, and as Norma found out the other day, if you go on Zoom, give yourself a little bit extra time, because what we've found is like every time we open Zoom, there's always an update that needs to happen. And then it depends on how big the update is. But it took us like 10 minutes to download the update and get it initialized and all that. So that was kind of a headache to do that. But we eventually got it going. But anyway, so we do that once a month. And if you want to hang out, you can always hang out with us and make stuff. You can use the kits, or you can choose not to use the kits. Next month, we're going to be working, if you want, with the Dragon's Blood mix. And yeah. All right. So hopefully you all had fun today and you enjoyed learning how to make the Chevron Stitch if you didn't know how to make that before. If you do make something using that, we would love to see. Head on over to our Facebook group, Allegory Gallery Design Challenges, and share your creations there. And if you didn't see yesterday, we had the dagger sale. So there were like 25, 24, 25 lots of different kinds of daggers, which we use in our project today. All right. Have a great night, everybody. See ya.